Good evening, Smilers. This is Lori Zwill with 6 Month Smiles. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us. And before we start, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. At this point, you should be able to see our screen, and you should be able to hear us. If you have any issues, then hang up and call back and put in the phone number and access code one more time. I'll be back here in about 30 seconds. Just want to make sure we've got everybody on board. Okay, Smilers, I'm back. Again, thanks for spending the evening with us. If you have any questions, if you would put them type them right in the box on the bottom of the right of the screen, and we will go over questions at the end. And you'll get a CE credit for this evening, and so please stay on till the end in order to receive your CE credit. I'm going to introduce Preview. We're really excited to have them aboard. They're a cosmetic simulation and smile design software. We hope that it helps you increase your cosmetic case acceptance and hourly production. Speaking tonight is Janet Hagerman and Joanne Villani. And Janet is a registered dental hygienist, and BS is an international speaker, author, and consultant. She's a graduate of the Medical College of Georgia, and she's a key dental industry thought leader known for her creative expertise in communication, leadership, and motivation. And Joanne has been in the dental field for over 30 years. Her most recent corporate position was a Vice President of Sales and Marketing for MIS Implant Technologies. In recent years, she's been focused on dental imaging and created Preview out of the need she saw in the dental market for intuitive and affordable dental treatment simulation software. I will go ahead and turn it over to Janet. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening. This is Janet Hagerman, and I'm happy to present tonight's webinar called Selling Dentistry. I actually wrote the book called Selling Dentistry Ethically, Elegantly, and Effectively, and I wrote the book because of you. You're the reason I wrote Selling Dentistry, all of you dentists out there who for years asked me when I went into their offices, like you're here with my team, would you please teach them to sell dentistry? I know dentistry is walking out the door. So could you teach us all how to sell dentistry, but don't call it sell? So you see, this whole concept of selling dentistry has been sort of like a big, burdensome elephant in the middle of the room that everybody's aware of, but tiptoes around and doesn't really want to acknowledge. And to the effect that you resist the concept of selling, even in the dental industry, you're going to seriously limit your ability to get case acceptance. So tonight we're going to talk about selling dentistry, what that really means in terms of patient relationships. So, you know, there was a time when the core clinical skill that you needed to be successful in our industry was clinical. You needed clinical expertise. And while you still need clinical expertise today, that's just the start. We need business expertise, and we really need communication expertise, because you can be the greatest clinician in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate that correctly to your patient to get them to say yes, then you're not going to be serving your patient, and ultimately you won't be serving your team as well. So the agenda for this evening is going to be the who, the why, and the how of selling, how to create relationships quickly, because this is all relationship-based, how to present the right amount of information based on your patient's values during your case presentation. And we're going to share some tools that you can implement very quickly, like tomorrow, that can increase the number of elective cases in your practice, 6-month smiles, whitening, veneers, etc. So, you know, we tend to think of our competition as the office, the practice down the road, down the street, on the other end of the city. But when your patient actually gets in the chair, who really is your competition? Or more accurately, what is your competition? Is it the vacation? Is it the fancy jewelry and wardrobe, or a flat screen TV? The picture of the car you see here is the actual picture I took in a parking lot after meeting a waitress in a tiny little breakfast-only hole-in-the-wall in a tiny little rural city. We got to chatting, and she was explaining to me about her Corvette, which she had custom painted, and all sorts of speed things souped up under the hood. I had to go find the car in the parking lot and take a picture. But the whole point of this, it reminded me of how we're not here to judge, nor can we ever know what reasons our patients have for how they spend their disposable income. So my core belief is that most people in this country, indeed most people that walk in your office, have the money for what they want, whether they need it or not. Our job in dentistry is to help them want what they need, and further help them understand wants that they may not even be aware of or know about. So that's my core belief, and I suspect some of you may share that. So selling is everybody's business. If you think it's just the job of the person who presents treatment in your office, the office manager or the doctor, no, it's everybody's business. And the truth is, we all sell. We all persuade all the time. Think about it. You're persuading your best friend to go to your favorite restaurant. You're persuading your kids to do their homework. You're a young executive, and you're persuading your boss that social marketing is a viable marketing tool, social media. So we're all using our skills to persuade people at different times in our life. Every day, actually, we're selling ourselves, we're selling our ideas. So the question is, how good are you at it? So the good news is that selling is a learned skill. We can all learn how to be elegant salespeople. When I wrote my book, Selling Dentistry, it was important for me to have this tagline, and I'm going to explain to you what I mean by this: ethically, effectively, and elegantly. First of all, ethically, we are not talking about selling any patient a bill of goods that they don't need. We're talking about ethically selling dentistry that is either positively clinically diagnosed and documented, or elective dentistry that's appropriate for that particular patient that they may not have ever thought that they could have or would want. We're talking about selling dentistry effectively, and that means getting the patient to say yes. That's the bottom line, because we can patient educate all day long, but if the patient doesn't, at the end of the day, say yes to treatment, then we haven't been effective. And finally, elegantly, because this should be an easy process, a comfortable process. I want it to be, you're going to learn some strategies tonight, and I want them to feel comfortable for you, no matter what personality style you have. And also, it's important that it's comfortable for the patient. So we never want this to feel awkward. We always want it to be a process of ease, if you will. So how do we do this? How do we start this? We set the stage for success, and we start off by having foundational meetings. And what do we do at those meetings? First of all, first and foremost, you must believe in what you're selling. So what does that mean? What are your belief systems, and how do those compare to the belief systems of the doctor of the practice? So what are your doctor's cosmetic beliefs? What's their philosophy? I can share with you my core belief about cosmetic dentistry. I believe that cosmetic dentistry can and does change lives. Can and does change lives. And we're going to see some pictures of that later on in the presentation when preview comes on, when Joanne shares some before and after photographs. So does your team, are you congruent? Are you together? Are you on the same page about your beliefs? Do we have the team congruency on that so that we can create strategies, like we're going to talk about tonight, and implement them in your practice together as a team for your success? Give them a chance. People will buy from people who care. Do you believe that? And then the question becomes, how do they know you care? We like to think that they know we care because we do good clinical dentistry, but the truth is our patients don't really know if we're clinically good or not. What they do know is how they feel, how we make them feel. Here's what I mean by that. My good friend Dave, I sent him to my dentist, who I think is an amazing, wonderful dentist. And I asked him the next time I saw him, how was your experience? And he said, you know, Janet, they made me feel like the King of England. And I said, what do you mean by that, the King of England? He said, you know, I know there were other people there while I was there. There were other patients. But while I was there, they made me feel like I was the only one. They just made me feel special. That's how our patients know we care. So how do we make that happen? How do we do that? We know that it's imperative to gain the trust of our patients, and we know that that will turn into relationship, and that's what we want. We want relationships. So we also know we don't have a lot of time in dentistry to create relationships. So how do we create relationships quickly? Some people think it takes a long time to create relationships, like weeks or maybe months. I can tell you that as a hygienist, I used to work temporarily and help offices out on a temporary basis, and I've been known to enroll patients in full mouth veneers in one day, creating relationships quickly. How do you do that? How do you build trust that quickly? Here's some tips. How do you become a patient advocate? Some of this is going to seem very simple, and just very simplicity is what makes it so effective. Eye contact and calling people by their name. The famous communicator Dale Carnegie said, no word in the English language is as sweet as the sound of a person's name. We all resonate to hearing the sound of our name. Eye contact, when you're speaking to somebody directly, particularly about important information about their treatment, and calling people by their name. Now, I know this seems so basic, so standard, but I cannot tell you how many offices I've been in, coaching, consulting, where they just forget to do that. So these are small adjustments that you can make in your behavior that have huge results, okay? This is a really fun way to learn to create relationships quickly. I call it connections of care. Some people call it linking. And this is how it works. When your new patient comes in, take 2 minutes, and that's all it takes is 2 minutes, to sit down eye to eye, name, and find out something personal about that person that you have in common. It could be, where did you come from? How did you find our office? Oh, Mrs. Jones referred you. It just so happens we've known her for years. It could be your kids go to the same school, or they both play soccer, or, oh my gosh, you moved here from Vermont. I grew up in Vermont years ago. What brought you to Florida? Very, very quickly finding some link, some connection with your patient. When I do presentations on selling dentistry, I always do an activity at this point, and I have the whole group, no matter how large, break up, and everybody leaves their seat and goes to find a stranger, somebody that they have never met. And for 2 minutes, everybody has a conversation. They have this conversation looking for a link, something that they have in common with this new person that they've never met. After the 2 minutes, I walk around the room and take whoever wants to volunteer to share their linking experience, and it is amazing at the things that people find in common. Some of them are very stereotyped and very typical, like the things I just mentioned, and some of them get wild and crazy, and which is kind of fun, because think about it, the more esoteric whatever your connection is, whatever you have in common, is certainly going to be more memorable. So this is the thing. It's great when your patients leave the office and go, oh, that was a great that was a great visit. They seemed very professional, and they really seemed like they knew what they were doing, and I think I liked them, rather than, oh my gosh, this one person there, we had this in common, we had that in common. I just feel like we've been friends for years. That's the difference. That's what you want to go for, and it can happen very, very quickly. So there you go. Now, you created your relationship, and now you get to do your comprehensive oral exam. And that can either be overwhelming or enlightening. Typically, it's overwhelming, and look, no reason why. Look at what we have, this whole laundry list on the left side of the screen of all the things that we're supposed to do in a comprehensive evaluation. That's a lot of needed treatment, and then do we even have any time left over to talk about elective dentistry? So it's a challenge, and it makes us question, should we not present all the treatment, the comprehensive treatment, and just sort of spoon feed them a little bit every time they come in, or do we give them the whole treatment in one visit at the beginning and run the risk of overwhelming? Let me tell you what overwhelm sounds like. Have you ever heard this before? Maybe not you, but maybe somebody's told you they've heard this before. Oh my gosh, how come my last dentist didn't tell me I needed all this? Or hygienist, oh my gosh, how come my last hygienist didn't tell me I needed all this? I just came in for my cleaning, okay? So that's what overwhelm sounds like. So how do we fix that? How do we help that? How do we turn overwhelm into enlighten? I call it the treatment triad, the winning exam for comprehensive care. One of the reasons I call it the triad is because it's composed of 3 components. But the other reason is, over the years, I have had so many practices tell me that once they've started doing this regularly, they triple their treatment compliance. Triple their treatment compliance. So let's talk about this. 3 components: urgent care, I call it 911, preventive care, and cosmetic care. So the conversation would be something like this. Mrs. Jones, as I examine your mouth today, I'm going to be looking for 3 types of treatment. One is urgent, or 911, and that's pretty obvious. You came in today for that big broken molar in the back, and we knew we were going to have to fix that. So that's an example of urgent care. But I'm also going to be looking at preventive care. I can see that you have a lot of old metal fillings in your mouth, and I used to have them too. That, you know, at the time years ago when they were popular, it was the best material that we have. And of course now we have so much better materials. But in your mouth, I can see some of those old metal fillings. You might get a little more wear out of them. And some of them are getting dangerously close to probably needing some protection. So we can talk about that and prioritize that. And finally, I'm going to talk about some cosmetic options for you. This is totally unnecessary, but also a lot of fun things to consider. So this is the fun part of dentistry. So that's your conversation with Mrs. Jones. Now, let me just tell you that some of the neat things about the treatment triad, this is like a blueprint for treatment, for ongoing treatment for your patient. Ongoing, and also it opens up the opportunity for it to be further, for it to be built upon. It also is a great tool for your team, because now that we prioritize these different phases or levels of treatment, I can help support that and reinforce it when the patient comes to see me as the hygienist. The assistant can do this. I can look at the chart and say, I can see that your next phase is these 2 crowns that Dr. Smith recommended, and that might be time to do those. If he thinks that it is the right time, what questions do you have for me about that, so that I can be pre-framing the patient for that. So think of this as a blueprint, and the thing that I like the most about it is this could be your most productive procedure. You know, we tend to think of crowns and veneers as really productive procedures, but this comprehensive exam, if it's done properly, can be very productive when you look at it as a blueprint down the road. So we've done our comprehensive evaluation. Let's talk about different ways to present treatment. Education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. We all hear patient education, educate your patient. Well, what exactly is that? let me explain a quick short story that illustrates the filling of a bucket. And it was me in my early years. One of my first patients was a banker, Mr. Banker, I'll call him. He came into my hygiene chair to get his teeth cleaned, and he was a periodontal patient. And I went into my very best patient education, explaining to him what he needed, and before I even really got very far, he stopped me and interrupted me, and he said, "Little lady, I have an important meeting to go to, and if you would please dispense with the lecture and just clean my teeth and let me on my way, I'd appreciate it." That was my first clue that I hadn't really learned how to get through to my patients. Now, you may have had a patient like this, or more likely, you've had lots of patients who may have been a little bit more polite and reserved and not actually said anything to you, but they didn't make an appointment after. Or they made an appointment, and this is even worse, and then didn't keep their appointment. So how do we know if we're getting through to our patients or not? Okay, so I filled this patient's bucket, and I filled it, and I filled it, and I filled it. But I never engaged him. This is what we're going after with education. We want to engage our patients. We want to ignite their curiosity. We want to motivate them into action. We don't want to fill their bucket. We want to light their fire of curiosity. So when patient education doesn't work, what else do we do? Well, one thing is we need to stay very focused and targeted in our communication. You know, we talked about the fact that when we're talking about very quickly linking, we talked about the fact that we don't have a lot of time in dentistry. Our schedules are busy. So how do we create relationships quickly? How do we figure out how to communicate quickly? I think patients receive information differently depending on their values. So we need to figure out, you know, some patients need more information, some need less information. Some of them need it in a different way. So it's like, well, that's great, Janet, but how do we figure all that out? It's the discovery process. The discovery process. Walter Haley, some of you may recall that Walter Haley was the owner, the founder of an organization called Dental Boot Camp for years. They taught wonderful, wonderful communication strategies for the dental industry. And he was well known for saying, if you want to sell, ask, don't tell. If you want to sell, ask, don't tell. Any good salesperson, any good relationship-based salesperson or book that's relationship-based in sales will say the same thing. Ask good questions, listen carefully. So that's where we discover our patient values. So here's 2 good values questions for you. First is, what's the most important thing to you, Mrs. Patient, about your teeth? And you're likely to get one of 2 answers. The first one, or one, is cosmetic. And here's an example of that. Janet, I'm going on vacation and I need to go shopping and I'm in a hurry and I'm late, so can you please just clean my front teeth? True story, true patient. Okay? It's very cosmetic. And then you have your patient who may not be as concerned about cosmetics, but they do want to keep their teeth. They are more functionally oriented. They want to keep their teeth. They just aren't as interested in what they look like, or at least not yet, if they're new to your office. We hope to change that, and we'll talk about ways to do that. But typically, we either have functional or cosmetic patients. So I'm going to adjust my presentation and customize it based on my patient's values. So if both of my patients, Nancy's cosmetic, Bill's functional, if they both need, let's say, the same crown and the same tooth for the exact same reason, my conversation with Nancy is going to sound something more like, Nancy, you are such a beautiful woman. You deserve a beautiful smile. Let's get rid of that old, ragged metal filling back there in the back, and let Dr. Smith put a crown back there. It's going to be tooth-colored. He does beautiful cosmetic dentistry. You deserve a great smile. And by the way, that crown is going to be stronger too, so it's going to be more functional and strengthen your teeth. But the main thing is it's going to look great. What do you say? Now, when I'm talking to Bill, I'm not going to talk about how great it's going to look. I'm going to talk about the fact, you know, Bill, that tooth is really weak back there. Can you see those in the intraoral camera? Can you see those big fracture and graze marks? And you can also see the margins are really deteriorating, and that lets bacteria enter the tooth. So I'm thinking that we're going to need to put a crown around that. That's probably what the doctor will recommend, and I would certainly say that that would be a good recommendation to strengthen that tooth and keep it solid and fat. By the way, it's going to look better too, but I know you told us you wanted to keep your teeth all of your life, and we want to support you in that goal. So this is going to be a really good idea for you. So you see, I'm going to customize my presentation based on my patient's values. So here's another values question for you. What is the most important thing to you about your dentist or your dental office? And those answers are going to have to do with probably 3 different areas. And those are the 3 things that keep people, by the way, from going to the dentist, according to ADA statistics. So one is time. Another is fear. And the third is money. So had I known about this years ago when I had my banker in the chair, he wasn't money, he wasn't fear, he was time motivated. So I would have said to that patient, to Mr. Banker, you know, I know that your schedule is very important to you, so let's go ahead and schedule this treatment according to your schedule. Now, the last thing I want is for this thing to blow up and cause an emergency that would require you to have to interrupt your schedule, interrupt an important meeting, or God forbid you couldn't get on a plane and go to a business meeting. So let's do this when this will fit in your schedule and not wait for an emergency where then you have to interrupt your schedule. If I'm talking to Mary, who's terrified to go to the dentist, I'm going to have a similar conversation, but it's going to speak to her value. So Mary, I know we want to keep you as comfortable as possible, and in order to get this work done, let's go ahead and do it now before it becomes an emergency. I don't want you to be, remember the first time you came into our office, how scared you were? And now after 3 years, you're a great patient. So let's keep it that way, and let's go ahead and schedule this while it's still not an emergency, okay? And if it's my money-oriented patient, similar conversation with something like, you know, Joe, dentistry is like anything. The earlier you take care of it, the least expensive it is. So why wait till it gets more expensive? Let's fix this now while it's in the earlier stages. So these are some of the values questions that you can use that will help you customize how you present treatment to your patients. Sell that smile. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Whitening, the window to cosmetic dentistry. Do you know that, well, I'm sure you know that billions of dollars are spent every day in retail stores, people buying whitening. We know people want whiter teeth. You know that because that's 90% of the people that come and fill out their new patient questionnaire in your offices tell you that they want whiter teeth. And yet statistically we know that most dentists only do about 25% of whitening procedures. And it's not just the whitening itself. Whitening opens up people's awareness of their teeth in a way they hadn't before. Just like our cute little lady here looking at her teeth and saying, I never really paid too much attention to that space down there on the lower right, but now that I've got my teeth whiter, I'm noticing things I hadn't noticed before. Whitening, the window to cosmetic dentistry. It's not just the whitening, it's what the whitening opens up to other cosmetic and elective procedures. So here's some things that you can do on a regular basis to initiate conversations about not only whitening, but other procedures as well. So, the shade guide exam. The shade guide exam is very simple, and it should be done at every recare appointment. Now, assistants, you can do it too, but hygienists definitely should be doing this at every recare appointment. And it's simply a matter of taking a shade guide and giving it to the patient. Don't hold it yourself, but give it to the patient, because we want this to be interactive. The patient holds it with a mirror so they can look at their teeth and compare it to the shade guide. And the conversation goes a little bit like this. You know, Joanne, as time goes by, we know that our teeth tend to change color. And by the way, say as time goes by. Don't say as we get older. Say as time goes by, our teeth tend to change color, and we want to document that here in the office and just keep track of it for you. So if you would just hold that shade guide up and point to your eye tooth here, we call that the cuspid, and just let me know which shade, call the number out, which is the most close to your particular tooth. And I'm just going to write that number down and keep track of that, and we'll do that every time you come in. That alone will spark conversation from your patient. That alone will spark some curiosity and questions, and that's what you want. That's the best thing that you want is questions, because now your patient is asking you, they're giving you permission to educate them. So at the very minimum, this is going to help with potentially increasing your whitening, but even more than that, ideally, it's going to be initiating all sorts of conversations about bonding, veneers, 6-month smiles, all the elective procedures that you have to offer your patients. So many times our patients don't even know what we have to offer them when it comes to cosmetic dentistry. I've had patients that went to other offices to get veneers because they didn't know their own dentist did them. What a shame that is. So this is an amazing way to begin to open up that gateway to aesthetic cosmetic dentistry in a very simple, easy way. And also using simulation software. This to me is one of the most exciting things about dentistry today is the simulation software that you can use to show your patients the options that you have, to show them what their smile could look like. So speaking of simulation software, I'd like to turn this over at this point in time to Joanne Bellani with Preview to show you some pretty exciting information about Preview and what it can do for you and your patients. Joanne?
Thanks, Janet. I am really happy to be here tonight introducing everyone to Preview because I know that dental treatment simulations are one of the most valuable but underutilized tools that we have in the dental practice. In fact, most of the dental practices that we work with here at Preview have never used simulations in their practice at all. So first I really want to start by telling you maybe why you should consider using dental treatment simulations in your practice. And the first one is to close bigger cases. And sometimes offices will use this if they outsource to a lab to do a simulation and they're paying a fee for it. And they're really only doing this typically when a patient comes in and they're asking for work or they know the case is large enough to justify the additional cost. But this is Malcolm, and Malcolm knew he needed a lot of dental work. He actually went to about 5 or 6 offices, and he received treatment plans that range from $35,000 to about $75,000. And it took him about 6 months for him to make a decision. So he went back to several offices. He asked more questions. He really wanted to find the right doctor and the right practice for him. There was only one out of those offices that imaged his smile. And when we're talking about cosmetic and elective procedures, we're really talking about things that are not covered by insurance or not completely covered by insurance. So what we're doing, as Janet said earlier, is we're really competing for that discretionary income. Are they going to buy a watch or a car? Are they going to consider spending that money on their dental work? And therefore, we really need to start to think of certain patients more as consumers and less of patients like patients in that moment. And when people are spending their money, they want to touch it. They want to feel it. They want to see what they're buying. That's why people take test drives. They try things on. And preview really helps to do that for your patients. In certain cases, we're not saying that that's going to replace a mock-up in the mouth that you may do or a wax-up with the lab, but this is something that you can offer to your patients in 30 seconds to a minute that you can do right when the patient is in the chair. So if they do need to come back for some of the other tools that you have, they've at least already been thinking about possibly accepting this larger type case. So with Malcolm, he was willing to actually spend the money. He's a very successful man. He had the money. And he was willing to spend it, but he wasn't sure what he was buying. So when he went to the one office that imaged his smile, and once he saw what the potential overall look would be, how he could feel getting his treatment done, he actually accepted the most expensive treatment plan. So they do say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, the image photo that he was given was worth about $75,000 because he took the extensive treatment plan that would restore his mouth. So again, you can use treatment simulations to help close the case. At Preview, we kind of say it's a cherry on top of a case presentation. Instead of sending someone maybe out the door with a list of treatment codes and fees, you're actually giving them something that they can see. And I'm going to show you how to image Malcolm's photo during the demo portion. What we really say, and where you will get the most benefit from simulation software, is to generate more interest in restorative cosmetic procedures that patients are not asking you about. So I'm sure you all recognize this person from your 6-Month Smile marketing materials. But what you may or may not know is the AACD does surveys, and they put them out every other year. And they consistently show that the dentist is the primary initiator of cosmetic conversations. So that means the patients are not really asking. And most, because most people have a poor dental IQ, are not aware of how cosmetic dentistry would benefit them. So that's what Preview does. Preview helps them identify the need. Someone can clearly see that their teeth might not be as white as they thought, as straight as they thought. Their smile may not be as nice as they thought. And they look at that picture on the right, the image picture, as a reference to how they currently look now, and that's how other people see them. And typically that creates a shift in their mind where they say, wow, I really want to do something about this. What are my options? So someone who has come into your practice thinking, oh, I'm not interested, I don't want this, you can create that shift very quickly by actually comparing their teeth to themselves where they look much different with a nicer, brighter smile. And it doesn't have to be large cases. You can do smaller changes to a patient's smile that can have a significant impact on your overall production. So if I was a hygienist in your practice and this patient came in, I might say, you know what, you look great. You have no cavities. Your gums are fine. I'll see you in 6 months. Or I can start another conversation, and that one would be, you know, how do you feel about that space? And maybe it doesn't bother them at all. Well, wouldn't it be fun just to see what it would look like closed? It's very quick to do a simulation like this, and the patient who didn't think that they were interested in closing that diastema, now it's like, wow, yeah, it does look better closed. Well, let's call Dr. Jones in and see what your treatment options might be. And now, instead of seeing them in 6 months for another recare appointment, we now maybe have generated a 6-month smile case, a cosmetic bonding case, a veneer case. Preview does not get into what the treatment plan is. Preview is just a way to image the photo to show the patient their potential, and then you can go over their options. Using dental simulations also can help to differentiate your practice. This is something that we just saw with Malcolm. So we hope that one day here at Preview that patients will routinely expect to get a treatment simulation. But until then, again, it's so underutilized that it's really a great way to differentiate your practice. And we have practices who will bring Preview to bridal fairs, health fairs, corporate events as a way to differentiate their practice and engage with patients. You can enhance the new patient experience. So people think that, or patients think that the Smile Previews are really cool technology. And you can add those simulations to the very first visit to show that your office is state-of-the-art. It's probably the most affordable way to create a positive perception that you use the most modern procedures and technologies in your practice. And you might have some other amazing tools. You might be using digital impressions. You may have a CEREC machine. But your patient may never see that or be exposed to that, if ever, until at a future appointment. So this is the way we want to set the stage when they come into your practice, that they have a great experience. Not only, as Janet said, we want to treat them really well, we want to show them that we offer the best in the practice, and we go over and above by adding these little touches when you come in for your new patient exam. Now, all of this really boils down to increasing case acceptance. You can do a great treatment presentation, but walk to the front desk and ask your receptionist, hey, did that patient schedule? And all of a sudden you feel like deflated because you feel like you really educated them, you really motivated them. But really, especially if the practice is introducing the treatment, you have really just started the patient on their buyer's journey. They have to make a decision. Many times they want to go and talk to their spouse. So we say, listen, just add a Smile Preview to the case presentation. It's so important that you send them home with it. When you add the Smile presentation, you've now given them a tool to use in their decision-making journey. When they share this photo with their husband or wife, the husband and wife is much more open to spending the resources. When they share the Smile Preview with their friends, their families, other family members, their coworkers, now all of those people are saying, wow, yeah, you look fantastic. You should do it. So instead of having that short amount of time in your practice to talk to them, you've increased your scope of influence to have their friends and family members and coworkers say, wow, really, you should do it. And that is going to help the patient make the decision to come back in and schedule. At the same time, you are increasing your word-of-mouth referrals. Because unfortunately, patients do not talk about their dentist as much as their dental offices, who may be fantastic, hope that they would. But by sharing the Smile Previews that you've printed out for them, they're talking about you more. That's more conversations and more opportunities for a friend or colleague to say, hey, you know what? I need a new dentist. Who's your dentist? And our Smile Previews are branded to your practice. We have you set up and put your logo there, the doctor's names, your address, your phone number, so it really acts like a business card for you. And even better, you can email directly from the Preview system to the patient, and we suggest that you tell your patient, hey, why don't you put this up on your Facebook page? Why don't you put this up on your Instagram? See what your friends think. Again, all about increasing your scope of influence and getting the buy-in from the friends and family to help you get a yes. But also, you're getting free advertising that way. And again, people think this is really cool, and wow, maybe I want to go to that dentist. So let me show you how easy it is to preview. Once you have downloaded the software, you have an icon on your desktop, and I already have it set up with a case. And 90% of the time, you're going to use a Smile Makeover button, which actually does not mean you're going to edit the patient's own teeth. You're simply going to replace their teeth with something from our Smile library. If you want to start doing simulations as part of a whitening exam, how Janet was recommending, you can do that, and that's right on a person's own teeth. And we have many different other types of simulations that you can do. But we don't want you to spend more than 30 to 60 seconds, so usually you're doing a Smile Makeover. And a Smile Makeover is great for 6-month smiles or any ortho system. dentures, veneers, even full mouth rehab with or without implants, which is basically what Malcolm got. And even though we're going to focus on the Smile Makeover button here, we offer full training to walk you through the entire program, and we'll talk about that after. So you don't have to know any graphic editing tools. This was designed for any team member who has no graphic editing experience to use this on day one, because we launch it in instruction mode, which can be disabled. We click a button, the software will automatically give you the first step of instructions, and it will pick the graphic editing tool that you will need for each step. So I'm just going to go ahead and acknowledge that I read those instructions, and basically I have to move some controls. All they have to do is trace the inner lips. We're giving the software a guideline to where to put that photo from our stock photo library. Now, again, because we only want you to do this in 30 to 60 seconds, even though the next step is to use all of our tools over here, which we go through in training, or they're very easy to figure out, we just go ahead and preview it, and you're done. And this was enough for Malcolm to see that his smile would be much nicer if he actually went through with the treatment. He could see what he wanted to see and what he was buying with that treatment plan. We can go ahead and print or email it right through the system. You can customize that printout. If you wanted to change cosmetic dentistry to orthodontics, you could do that, or even you can put in 6-month smiles. Whatever it says here will automatically change here, and then you can go ahead and print or email it. And again, it emails in the exact same little template that you see here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the one that you're familiar with, which is from 6-month smiles. Again, it's very fast to learn the software because once you use the same button a few times, you don't even have to read the instructions. So we're just doing the same exact thing, closing it up, clicking continue. The first thing we want to do is preview it. And if we want to make any adjustments, we just tell you, go from the top down. So we have really cool tools that can help you tweak a smile very fast. We have upwards only. If you want to use their original teeth as a guideline as well, we can pull from the frame in any direction. We can get rid of gum on top. We can make teeth a little longer if we want. We can adjust the smile arc or the occlusal plane. We can take yellow out. We can make teeth a little brighter, and then we can check it again. And it's that quick. Now, we're not treatment planning the case. We are simply giving a patient with a very poor dental IQ an idea of what they might look like. And the software is so intuitive that when we actually go to print or email it, if you've done a smile makeover, it knows that you've used a stock photo, so you go ahead, the software itself will actually put that in the disclaimer. If you'd like a full demo of the software, I'm actually going to send you a link after the webinar, and you will have a link in there. Okay, so if you're interested in setting up an account, you can either go to the website, but we have a special sign-up form for 6-month smile providers because we do want to know that you are a 6-month smile provider because we have some special things that we can do with you. And so that link will be in an email that we will send to you, and in the future it will be in the Provider Resource Center. But when you sign up for an account, you will have a username and password that you log in with, and that will give you access to your account where you can download the software onto as many computers as you want, even at home if you want to play with it. You only have to have Windows 7 or later, and you can be on any computer because your patient photos are stored in the cloud. And I want you to know that we fully stand by the software. We don't say, hey, thanks for signing up, see you later. It's in our best interest that you become preview experts and that you use it routinely. And what that means is you're successful. you're comfortable using the software, and you are increasing your production, and you are getting new patients. So therefore, we are very proactive in reaching out to you to train your staff. Not only do we do a quick start training, not that you need it, because you saw that each simulation gives you step-by-step instructions. But we find when you're incorporating any new technology, it's always good to have a set time where everyone sits to just learn it. Otherwise, it gets pushed off till tomorrow and then the next day. And what we're going to do in the future is we're going to actually, this should be up by next week, we will have all of the direct links to setting up certain types of online appointments right here so your staff can do it really easily. Otherwise, we have our support email or our phone number. Support is included for free, unlimited. We really work with you to make sure that you are successful with the software. Okay, so now here's our contact information if you have any questions. We will be sending everyone out an email by tomorrow. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Janet.
Wow. Thanks, Joanne. That was amazing, amazing. Thanks very much. As we wrap this up, I want to give you one more strategy for selling dentistry successfully, and that is what we call transformational vocabulary, the power of the words that we use. You know, we talked earlier about staying focused and targeted in our communication, and this is one more example of that, the power of the words that we use. You may have noticed earlier I referred to old metal fillings. I never refer to them as amalgam, and I certainly would never refer to them as silver fillings. Silver implies a precious metal, and we don't want to imply that old metal fillings, old amalgam fillings are certainly not precious. So I refer to them as old metal fillings. Inflammation is infection. For periodontal therapy, people understand what an infection is, and people don't want it. Another one is deep cleaning. Deep cleaning is just, you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you're still using the terminology deep cleaning. It's old, it's antiquated, and it's not even a procedure. There's no dental code for a deep cleaning. You can replace it with periodontal therapy or removing bacteria, but for your periodontal program, hygienist, using the phrase deep cleaning is the kiss of death. First of all, you're not going to sell any periodontal therapy that way because this is what that sounds like. The office manager says, Mrs. Jones, that'll be $1,200 for your deep cleaning next time. I'm not paying that kind of money to get my teeth cleaned. No, this is not just a regular cleaning. This is a deep cleaning. I don't care what kind of cleaning it is. I'm not paying that kind of money to get my teeth cleaned. So, see, your patient, you're not going to get compliance, number one. But even more importantly, using that old terminology, your patients do not have an understanding of the disease, the periodontal disease that they have in their mouth. So that's very impactful transformational vocabulary. And also, you know, we can't do any of this great dentistry for our patients if they're not in the chair. So we need to do everything we can and be mindful of the words that we use to refer to our actual appointments. So when you have a cancellation, you're calling just to tell somebody, we've had a cancellation, you know, would you consider coming in earlier? Use the term instead, we've had an unexpected change in our schedule. This sounds much better because we don't want to remind our patients to keep cancellations in their mind. We don't want them to have the idea that cancellations are okay. And also referring to appointments as your reserved appointment time. Both of these types of transformational vocabulary keeps keeps reminding the patient of the value of their appointments, the power of words. Also, there's words that we call diminishers. They diminish the importance of something. So rather than, you know, well, you just have a little bleeding, or you just have a few cavities, or you just have a little crowding, or it's just a small space, those just diminish. So instead, it's not just a little bleeding. You have 8 sites of bleeding in your mouth of active infection. You don't just have a few cavities. You have 3 cavities, and we need to fix those. It's not just a little crowding. It's crowding. What can we do to improve that for you? So just be mindful of the words that you use. It's very important. And once again, we talked about small tweaks that can have big changes. All these things we've talked about tonight all combine together to make for very successful selling of cosmetic dentistry and dentistry in general. So the main thing about transformational vocabulary is just to remember to be very intentional in your words that you use. So to summarize tonight, we talked about why you need sales skills, and by you we mean all of you, all of us. We talked about your team philosophy being congruent with the doctor so that you're all on the same page, and creating patient relationships quickly with one example of the linking connections of care. And we talked about the treatment triad to prioritize your treatment presentation to triple your patient compliance. We talked about focusing and targeting your communication with asking and values questions. And we talked about whitening being the window to cosmetic dentistry. And Joanne shared some awesome information with us about preview using simulation software. And we wrapped up talking about some transformational vocabulary. So I hope that these strategies tonight have turned that big, scary, burdensome elephant of selling dentistry into your new best friend. And once again, I'm Janet Hagerman, and I'd like to offer all of you a free copy of my book, Selling Dentistry Ethically, Elegantly, and Effectively. It has the strategies we talked about tonight, many of them, and more. And if you'll simply email me at janet@janethagerman.com, just put preview in the subject box, and I'll know that you were on the webinar, and I'll send you your free copy. You can also just Google sellingdentistry.com, and that'll bring you to that page as well. But email me. I'll be happy to send you a free copy of my book, preview in the subject line. And I want to thank all of you for being on the webinar tonight. We've enjoyed sharing this information with you. And I'm going to turn this over back to Joanne, because I know we have a few minutes left, and we'd like to entertain any questions that you may have. So Joanne?
Yeah, I think it's going to Peggy. I think she has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Janet and Joanne, very much for this webinar. Yeah, Joanne, I'm so impressed with the preview software, and I think it could help solve a lot of 6-month final cases. And even some of our instructors are using the software and selling the cases. So we're pretty excited about it. Peggy, do we have any questions?
Yes, we sure do. Joanne, I have a question regarding preview. 2 people have asked similar questions, and I'll kind of phrase it like this. So do patients expect the treatment outcome to be the same as the simulation, or does it ever backfire on patients or anything like that? Could you give some feedback regarding that?
Sure, absolutely. That is such a great question, because it is such a common question. So what we stress is that Preview is not a treatment planning software. It is a marketing / patient education / patient motivational software. So the doctors have to really take their clinician hat off and realize that this is a 100% tool for the patient. And the patient is not looking at the teeth. Oh, the teeth are going to be square or round or flatter. That's what the doctor is looking at. Oh, if I were to do this case, it would look like this. No, the patient is not looking at it like that. The patient is looking at their whole face, which is why we only suggest to use portrait photos, and they're saying, wow, I look younger, I look more attractive, I look more vibrant. And most of the time, as we said, you're going to use a small preview. That's a stock photo of somebody else's teeth. So we said, hey, you know what, we do great dentistry here, but we're not graphic designers. We took somebody else's teeth and put them in your mouth because we want to give you an idea of what your overall look will be if you actually did this cosmetic dentistry. And that's why the disclaimer is there as well. And I've been in this space 7 years now and worked with a lot of dental practices and just really have not heard any issues from patients. And one of the doctors I worked with said it best. He said, we're doing custom cases in their mouth. We're working on their own teeth. So I would expect that my work would be much better than a simulation. So even though it is a real common concern, it really, if the dentist realizes this is not a tool for them, it's for the patient, and that you use your explanations verbally along with giving away the preview, then the small preview, then it works out really well. And we go through some of this when we do training, and we also, when someone signs up for a package, we start sending them, and we don't oversend, but we have 5 best practices emails, and it talks in there how to talk to a patient, when to talk to a patient about some of this stuff. So it can be pretty easily overcome, so it should not be a concern.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Joanne. Joanne, can you go through again how they get registered for it, and what is the cost? 2 different providers have asked, like the cost ranges or what the 6-month smile special are. I know they are going to get a link, but any insight on that would be great.
Yes, okay. Great. So our software is easily downloaded, and we have links on the website. But because you are a 6-month smile provider, we are going to send you a special link in the email that we send on Thursday, and then we will also have a link in the in your provider resource section. And I'm not sure when that will be up, but I assume pretty shortly. So that is how you'll sign up. You'll give us all your office information. In the email that we will send you, we will give you 2 different introductory promotions, specific right now to 6-month smile, and you can use those promotional codes when you sign up. When you register for a package, we are notified, and then we will start reaching out to you if you would like to set up training. We have one clinical instructor for 6-month smiles. We have never trained his office, even though we've emailed and contacted several times because we're very proactive, but he's using it successfully, even has a link up on his website about uploading photos, which is another thing that we can talk about if anyone's interested, because a lot of practices do that. So we will contact you as 6-month smile providers by Thursday with everything you need to know. And once you sign up, we will absolutely be in contact with your practice, and we will walk you through everything to make sure that you are happy and successful. So no risk of falling through the cracks.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are just a few minutes over, so I apologize.
Oh, Peggy, someone wanted to know the pricing. Should I do the pricing or answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. The pricing range. I'm sorry. The pricing ranges from $45 without a 6-month smile promotion. This pricing ranges from $45 for a whitening package up to $199 a month. They're monthly packages, and they are cancel anytime, no contract. So the idea is if you will give us the opportunity to work with you, that you will see success, or you can easily cancel. There's no fine print, no red tape. We either help you increase production and help you increase your 6-month smile cases, or you say, thank you, we tried you, bye-bye. So it is $45 to $199 a month, US dollars.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for clarifying that, Joanne. All right. And again, I apologize for being a few minutes over. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if you have any further questions, feel free to email myself or Joanne. Janet's email address is on here as well, so if you have any questions about her specific presentation, you can email her. If you want a copy of her book, go ahead and email her. I'd love a free book, so I'll take anything, free to learn. So anyway,
you'll get one.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Janet and Joanne, I just want to thank you for giving us the insight and knowledge. And for the 6-month smiles providers, I want you to look into Preview. They're one of our preferred partners with 6-month smiles, and Like Joanne and Lori mentioned, a lot of our clinical instructors are using it. You can see it on their website. You can actually, email patient photos and see how it works. So it's a great way to increase, your 6-month Smiles cases, as well as just your overall production of selling more cases. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you, Lori, Janet, Joanne, and
thank you.
look forward to seeing you all on another webinar real soon. Have a great evening.
Thank you.